You're listening to the Staffa Corner Podcast, a Staffa-tarian look at entertainment and life with your host, Greg Staffa.
My guest this episode is talented director Anthony Lucero. He spent decades working with visual effects, including Industrial Light and Magic, and he has his first feature film, East Side Sushi, was out. Currently, he's promoting a paper bag plan. Anthony, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Appreciate it.
So the first question that immediately pops off on my mind before we get started on digging deeper was, you spent over a decade doing visual effects for Industrial Light and Magic. You worked on films like Star Wars, Pirates of the Caribbean, Iron Man. So naturally, your first feature film would deal with race, gender, and your second film deal with disability.
All right.
What made the transition to going from something like Iron Man to something that deals with race and gender? And we'll dig into it more, but that's just what I wanted to ask first off.
Yeah, it's, when I started working for Industrial Light and Magic, and I have to say that was the pinnacle of my career. It's what I wanted to do since I was a child. I'd watch the Millennium Falcon on a green screen and just wanted to know how that was done. And so that was it. So I finally got to work on my dream job at Industrial Light and Magic. And then, the luster starts to wear off after a while once you've got that pinnacle job, no matter what it is. And maybe that's just for me, but I would work these very long hours on these visual effects films, like Iron Man or The Avengers. But those were great films, but there were some films that I worked on that were not so good. And you could see where they spent most of their time, most of their budget on the spectacle, on the visual effects, and less on the storytelling. So it was a bit frustrating for me. And, I just had to tell myself, look, just shut your mouth and keep working and make a paycheck, and that's nice. Or you could do something about it and make a film. If it's that easy, right? It's terribly difficult to make a film. But I decided to do it. So that was the first feature, was East Side Sushi. I'd made short films before that. I went to film school, and I would do short films about every year, just narrative pieces and documentaries as well, just to get that muscle, just to keep that muscle going. And then I just decided I'm going to write this feature film, and it would have zero visual effects, and it would solely concentrate on the story and the acting and the characters. And that was it. Completely opposite of where I was from in my career. And so, yeah, that's where East Side Sushi stemmed from. And then, So, but that's kind of where it started.
I had to get that out of the way because that was the biggest question on my mind. I actually have Fawn Davis coming up on a future episode, and he was nice. a big ILM person.
That's right.
Just wanted to get that question out of the way because that was a glaring kind of contrast. It's like going to chef school and being trained as a great sushi chef, and then getting your dream job managing McDonald's. And I was like, well, that's
right.
Great, but that's a little bit, and I don't mean to compare what you're doing to being McDonald's, but that just means the contrast of what you had spent years doing to what one would expect that you were doing the latest, Marvel project or something like that, not something that dealt with personal issues.
Well, I think working at McDonald's probably pays better than being an independent filmmaker, I must say. It's like you don't make much money doing this, I tell you.
True. So let's get started. Let's jump back again. I just wanted to touch on that, but tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from, what got you started in filmmaking.
Yeah, from Oakland, California, born and raised there, East Oakland. So the notion of film or going into film just doesn't exist there in the 80s. And so, but like I was saying, I used to watch these behind the scenes with my father of Star Wars. I was enamored with Star Wars, and Empire Strikes Back just blew my mind at, this was probably like 11 years old. And then, so I that's the thing, I'd watch these documentaries, and that's what I wanted to do. You could actually make a living working in film. Oh my God, like this is a dream. I could fly spaceships and blow things up and make miniatures and get paid to do it. It just, as a child, just that is the dream. So yeah, so I kind of just went to film school, San Francisco State, and I have to tell you, once I found out Industrial Light and Magic was in the Bay Area, was north of Oakland in Marin, that blew my mind. Oh my God, I can't believe they make Star Wars here in the Bay Area. It's insanity. I have to go work for that company, and I did. And I was a commercial editor out of college, and learned the Avid, which was very new at the time. So I was an editor, documentaries, and then I got hired at ILM because they had Avids. They just didn't have Avid editors at the time, the late '90s, and so I was a good fit there. And when I was being interviewed, they were working on Episode 1, Star Wars, and to see another lightsaber fight between Darth Maul and Obi-Wan, as I'm being interviewed and walking through, and I'm looking at some of the rough footage of that fight scene. I think I was going to lose it. I was just going to faint, and but I had to hold it together. You can't act like a fanboy when you're walking through Industrial Light and Magic, or you won't get hired. So I kept my cool, and I was like, oh, very nice, very nice. Okay, yep, Star Wars. I see you're working on that. That's wonderful. And then I got the job, and the rest was history there. But yeah. And I worked in visual effects for I would probably more than 2 decades, bopping around in visual effects, and it's a good paycheck. It's getting rough though, right? It's getting rough to stay in visual effects here in this industry in Los Angeles and anywhere. So it was probably a good time for me to transition out of that field.
I think going to ILM or Skywalker Ranch or one of those places, I think you get like a free pass. It's like when you go to the fair, none of the food that you eat has calories. So I think you're allowed a certain level of fandom. And you got to remember, back when you're talking about, Star Wars now is everywhere again. It's, TV shows and the movies coming out, and some are good, some are. But back when you're talking about, the idea of Star Wars coming back was almost unheard of. I mean, we always had that thing where that was something nice from the past, and that's our childhood, and we dream of things, and we had books and stuff. But the idea of a new Star Wars movie during that time was just something that had fans just in awe. So
yeah, exactly. I was just happy to be a part of that. It was because it was dead, right? I mean, Star Wars was dead at that time, and who knew that today in 2025 it would just have exploded as big as it did. But yeah, at the time, to
see that, what must have been amazing.
It was amazing. So
you're doing visual effects. You decide to do your first feature film. What made you decide, this is a transition that I can make? What were kind of the steps in between that you used to better prepare yourself? I can't imagine a lot of transition as far as, building things or creating things at ILM to something that has, like you said, zero, digital effects for East Side Sushi. What made you have that confidence, and what was that like?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of blind confidence to dive into a feature film, never doing one before. But, before that, I had done, I would say 6, 7, 8 or so short films that I directed myself, that I wrote. And it's just, you're working that skill set of writing, and how does that writing transform onto the screen? Okay, I get it now. You start to get it as you're making short films. So make short films. If you make short films, you will see how everything transitions onto the screen and when it's done. So it's a great exercise. But, I knew back in the probably early 2000s or so that short films were not going to get me anywhere. They're definitely not going to make money in short films. You can't really make money in short films, but it was schooling for me. And so doing the feature film, the great thing, one of the great things about working full time, having a full time job at ILM, with benefits and you're in the union and it's great, is I was single and I got to save up my money. And so it's like, okay, it's time to either put a down payment for a house or for a feature film. And it's stupid. It's really stupid to I'm going to go make a feature film. That's where I'm going to invest my money. It's really just dumb. And I did it. But I would have regretted buying that home and never had gone towards my dream of making a feature film. So sometimes you just got to do that. And if I were to do it again, go back in time, I'd probably make the film again and make that stupid choice. But I did it because, nobody's knocking on my door. Nobody's like giving me bags of money to make my film. I knew I had to invest in myself. So that's what I did. I was the sole executive producer on the film and paid for it. And it was really difficult, of course. But I got through it and, begged and borrowed people to do it. And that's when I came out with East Side Sushi. East Side Sushi is a story of a Latina who wants to become a sushi chef. And that whole world, and the film did great. It won tons of awards and festivals. And, it's, you talk about indie films, we couldn't afford to hire a named actress, so I just got a great actress. I got her name is Deanna Torres, who played the lead role, and she's fantastic. But distributors want faces; they want names that are recognizable. So it's a very tough journey to sell that film. But at the end of being on the road a year with that film, finally HBO purchased it, and that was a big win for me because I was going to die on the festival circuit. It's like, okay, I've been on the festival circuit for a year with this feature film, and it's won, at the time, it won 12 awards, and it's like, it is a festival favorite, it's an audience favorite, I could see that, but it's going to die here, and it's going to go nowhere. And then finally, when HBO saw it, they saw it at a festival in Miami International, and they liked it. And they wanted it. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, yes, you can have this film. And of course, when you get somebody like HBO that wants your film, all of a sudden, the other crabs start to come out and they want a piece of it. Oh, wait, HBO wants it. I want that film too. It's like, no, I talked to you, 6 months ago and you didn't want the film. And now that HBO wants it, now you want it. It's that crazy game in Hollywood. It's like nobody wants you until somebody wants you, then everybody wants you, and it's just the crazy game. But that's how the first film came about.
Was it a deliberate calculation to? I think a lot of people naturally would kind of cling to what they know and their past, but you went. This isn't anything special effects. Was there that deliberate kind of separation to not make anything that you could fall back on your previous work or hire friends that you had worked with before that from ILM, or was this just the story that you found to be compelling, and regardless or not if it had special effects or not, this is what you wanted to tell?
It's a few things. It was most of it was economics. Was because I had written some other screenplays that were sci-fi or action film, but this one, East Side Sushi, I felt like of all the stories that I had written, this is the one I could make financially. So, of course, it was a story that was close to my heart, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't make the film. I always have to feel strongly about it to move forward with the film, because you're going to spend a lot of time and money with it. So, East Side Sushi was something, it's originally a Latino. I'm Latino, so and it was originally going to be a Latino who wants to become a sushi chef. So it's that dual cultures, of having a Mexican trying to become a sushi chef. And then I was interviewing sushi chefs at the time, and I realized, no, I don't see any women doing this job. I had never seen a woman sushi chef ever. So I immediately went back to my screenplay and changed it to a woman, just to add that dynamic of gender and race. In just trying to get a job, right? You would never think that gender and race would matter in getting a job in a restaurant, and it does. It was very compelling for me to tell that story. There's a lot of dynamics to it, and I just thought it was interesting to see that. So yeah, and unfortunately, I couldn't use all of like anything at Industrial Light and Magic. I couldn't use any of their support because it was all visual effects. And there are visual effects in East Side Sushi. They're just, you don't know that they are visual effects, but there are some in there. And then we did some of the mix at Skywalker Sound, so I was able to use that as well. But yeah, had I made a sci-fi film, I really could have taken advantage of working at Industrial Light and Magic at the time. But no, it's like I said, it's mostly financial why I do these smaller films.
Did you find that kind of freeing in a way that you didn't have those kind of safety nets under you?
Both. Freeing in the sense that I didn't have to answer to anybody. There was nobody paying for this film other than me, so I could choose whether it's black or white or, doesn't matter. It's my film. That's freeing, but it's terribly difficult and stressful to take your savings and pour it into a film, not knowing if you'll ever make your money back. So that is, the restrictions are huge when you don't have enough money to, pay for certain sets or feed enough crew people. It's like, oh my God, I really need 30 people to do this scene, but I can only afford 15. It's like I can only feed 15. So let's start scaling back. So that's those types of sacrifices you have to make that are really make it very difficult. So yeah, on one sense, it's freeing and easier, and on the financial side, it's harder. So it's give and take.
Listening to your last answer, I kind of had a question form in my mind, and I could be completely stupid on this, but maybe not. But I almost wonder, a lot of industrial light and magic is about fooling perception, about making a 5-inch spacecraft look like it's a half a mile long flying through the air to make it look like dinosaurs are real. Does that creative mindset help in when you're doing a film like East Side Sushi, where you said, I have to find a way to make it look like 30 people are in a room, but I only have enough money for 20? Does some of the creative approaches that ILM taught you to create, does that help you as a director to find ways when you're trying to save money to kind of not cheat the system, but visually you're creating something that maybe isn't there, or you're filling a space that isn't there?
For sure. Yeah, because at ILM we would shoot, these little practicals, these small sets on a stage after the initial production is wrapped. So we would go on the stage, we'd shoot things, and we'd insert it into the film that's already been shot months prior, and it works. You just make sure you light it correctly and match the lighting, and it's seamless, right? And then it is that magic that you think about when you're producing a film, using that little bit of magic of, in East Side Sushi, we needed a shot of the lead actress at the restaurant, but we weren't at the restaurant anymore. Okay, how about we do have the curtains from the restaurant? Let's put the curtains behind her on a C-stand, and we'll light it just like she was at the restaurant. And so you look at that footage. Okay, we'll just try to match that. And it's movie magic when she cut it in. It's like, that is completely seamless. It looks like she is at that restaurant. It's not the same scale, of course, as doing visual effects, but you are able to think outside the box and be like, no, we can get that shot. We can get that shot. We don't have to be at that same location. And we can just fake it. And once you add the sound effects of, the restaurant underneath, or music, and it just kind of all ties it together, and it's seamless. So yeah, I would say it does help production wise to think in those ways of alternate ways of getting a shot done.
And this next question might be a little bit too above your pay grade or whatnot, but like, I've attended South by Southwest, I think 7 years, seen many great films, a lot of award-winning films on the festival circuit. But there seems to be a kind of a roof over the heads of everyone, that they can go on and win film festival films. Like you said, it's hard to get it out into distribution. Why is there kind of a separation between recognizing these award-winning films in a film festival to then being brought to a wider audience?
It's solely based on who's in the film. I mean, or who made the film. It's solely what names are attached and how much money. It's a big money game, of course. Like our film Paper Bag Plan, we have 2 actors who are amazing. They both won awards separately at completely different film festivals, and their performances are amazing. But you don't really recognize them. Lance Kinsey, maybe you recognize him from Police Academy films, but these distributors, and I had the same problem with East Side Sushi, could not get that film sold because they didn't recognize the lead actress. So you could win an award at Tribeca or Telluride or any other film festival, and these distributors, they'll look at it and say like, I want to be able to put a thumbnail of whoever named actress, and people will click on it because they recognize him or her. And so but I understand that. I understand it's a business. I mean, filmmaking seems more business than art now, and I understand that. So it makes sense from a distribution side, but just to go with this idea, I wish people in acquisitions, I wish they would go to all these film festivals other than the big ones, the top five, the ones where the markets where they sell the films. I wish these acquisitions would curate from other film festivals around the country and around the world, because they would find some amazing storytelling that you don't see normally on streaming. So yeah, it's sad, but that, like I said, it's more business than art, and that's just how it works. And it's like once you accept that it's a bit unfair, but once you accept that, then you're kind of able to move on and be like, okay, I'm gonna make my film. I'm gonna make it the way I like it, and we'll just see what happens. We'll just throw it out there to the wind and see what audiences attached to it. But in a sense, you're able to sort of move on instead of being frustrated all the time about the way the system works.
Does the state of Hollywood concern you right now? Because I think we're at a crossroads. It used to be that DVD sales could make up for smaller films to be made, that the sales would boost a little bit of the profit. As far as your background with Industrial Light and Magic, they just closed down the 3010 studios, I believe in 2023. Is there a concern as an up and coming director of the stuff, the kind of the safety nets that are in place, the shops that are in place to do digital effects, those are all kind of going away?
It's twofold, I think. Visual effects, it's taken a hit with AI, of course, and so now anybody could just with a prompt make a world that didn't exist before, and they do it very quickly. So visual effects has taken a hit on that side. I mean, the film industry, the 3210 was who moved in after Industrial Light and Magic moved out, and now it's gone. Industrial Light and Magic is still around, of course. They're in San Francisco, but visual effects companies they're taking a hit unless they can go to other parts of the world and do their VFX. At the same time, AI is catching up very quickly, and I don't know. Everybody's it seems like they've been gloom and doom with the film industry, and I just sort of feel like, for me, I mean, okay, for me, it's like you just kind of, because I have these stories that I need to tell, I just have to keep moving forward and telling these stories. I'm not going to all of a sudden stop, although I should, and think, oh my God, my 401k is just depleting, or it's not growing, and I'm not getting a paycheck. And so, yeah, the smart thing would be to like sort of move on and go into a different industry. Because there's not a lot of work in LA. It's all the studios. It's been really tough. But I think if you have a story to tell, then you're just going to be like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to find a way to do it. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I don't know if it's going to make $1 or $1 million or whatever. But that's not why I went into the film industry. I didn't go into the film industry to make a lot of money. I went into it to tell stories. And so I'm still going to keep doing this as best I can, right? Without depleting my kids' college fund, which maybe I will. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but yeah, it's tough out there, I have to say.
If you were put in charge of a major Hollywood studio, is there a change that you would make? Because I think, talking about your growing up, you used to watch behind the scenes with your father, I think you said. Mm-hmm. We used to have the Lord of the Rings, DVD commentary were amazing look at behind the scenes. And I think it got a lot of people inspired to work in film, those kind of things on DVD features. And now we really don't have those. There really isn't that avenue of creativity that brought us to Spielberg's, that brought us to Lucas's. What would you do to change that or shake things up, or what needs to be done to to start getting more of those creative types wanting to do film again.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the DVD, I loved all those commentaries that just don't exist anymore. And let me go back to your last question too, just to touch on that. You talked about DVD sales, and yeah, my last feature had DVD sales, and that helped. And so I don't know how we can survive just on streaming. So I do hope that, and I don't know if I were head of a studio, I would make this call, but it would be nice to have more DVD sales out there, physical Blu-ray sales out there. I would try to push that, but I mean, yeah, if I were head of a studio, the changes I would make is, bring work back to LA for one, bring it back to the US. These tax incentives are just decimating our film industry here. So yeah, bring work back. Yeah, it's look, I'm not in charge of these, multi, 100, 200, $300 million projects that are out there, but it seems feasible that it's like, how much money are you saving by shooting this in Ireland? It's like, can't you just I think you could find a way to keep jobs here in the US. So that's one thing. And the other thing, as I was saying, is in order to find good movies, I would not go to, Toronto or fight at Sundance to find the best. It's like, why do people think that those are the best films out there? I would curate from other film festivals all across the country, and that's where you're going to find some great films. Not just at 1 or 4 festivals, you're not going to find the best films. It's impossible to think that those programmers are the end all be all for great films. That's just ridiculous. But that's what studios. That's where they go. It's like they're all going to fight for whatever's at Sundance. It's like, that's ridiculous. I don't get. So anyway, yeah, make me a head of a studio, and I'll pull in some good films.
There you go. I think I saw an interview with, I think it was Rob Lowe, and he was hosting a game show where they fly the contestants from LA overseas somewhere because it's cheaper to do that than to film in LA.
It is.
It was just like that. That's just crazy.
It is, but again, I'm not in charge of these budgets, but it's like, how much are you actually saving at the end of the day? Just, it just seems ridiculous. But, I just feel like there's so many people, so many great people here that need the work. Just spread the wealth around, just keep jobs here. It's going to help everything. It's going to help the economy, and it just helps everything.
What advice would you have for another young and up and coming director that's looking at, starting off doing some shorts or stuff like that? What hope would you give them to, or is it just, this is a passion? You're not going to get paid a lot. It's like a teacher, being a teacher. Teachers don't make a lot of money. There's not a lot of appreciation, but the ones that do it love doing it. And regardless of the pay, is that now what we have to kind of have that approach with people in Hollywood for filmmakers?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I think the people that are wealthy are making a good paycheck. It's few and far between. But I think it's just going to be like being in theater, right? You're in theater because you love theater. You love working in theater, and you're not doing it because you're going to be rich. So that's at least the notion that I take with making films. I'm doing this because I'm probably not going to be wealthy being a filmmaker. Would love to be, but it may not happen. But I can't keep thinking about that. I just got to think about the next film. I got to think about the next story that I want to tell. And it is true when you receive, like on Paper Bag Plan, I've received so many emails and posts about the film and how it just, I don't know, it brightened their year and they just love it. And it's a good reward to get that. And it's, it doesn't come financially, doesn't help my bank account, but it does feed the soul. And I think that's how I'm moving forward with it. I have to, unfortunately, I think if you're going to be an actor or I think you also have to have a side hustle. You have to have some kind of income coming in between the jobs you get as an actor. So I think that's just going to be the norm moving forward.
And let's talk about a Paper Bag Plan a little bit. This one focuses on disability and returning to the workforce. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, Paper Bag Plan, it's a story of a father who has a disabled child, and he has cancer. And so he decides he's going to train his son how to bag groceries so that his disabled son, so that he could get his first job and, start a path of independence for his son. And I know it does sound gloom and doom and sad, but it's a very inspirational film. It just deals with a few hard things in life, like cancer, and what happens to my child with a disability once I leave this earth. But it is a very uplifting film and has bits of comedy thrown in there to lighten it up. But yeah, it's the story itself was inspired by my mom and my brother Eddie, who was disabled, and my brother Eddie, he couldn't walk, he couldn't talk. He's the one thing Eddie could do is he could open his mouth. When you put some pureed food up to his mouth, he could open his mouth. That was the extent of what Eddie could do. And so, but it was a very loving relationship between my mom and Eddie. But, my mom was up into her late 70s. She'd still lift Eddie out of that bed and into the wheelchair or down the hall and into the bath. She's very strong, and she was able to do that. But we would think about what's going to happen once Mom is not on this earth anymore. Who's going to take care of Eddie, and that responsibility. So we would think about that. And then the other half of the inspiration was my sister Margie. She has a daughter with Angelman's syndrome, and her daughter, Sarah, my niece, she has the cognitive ability of maybe a 1-year-old. So my sister Margie, she passed away in 2018 very quickly, very unexpectedly from cancer, and left behind her daughter. So it was a scramble of, oh my gosh, who's going to take care of Sarah, and how does this work? And so that really, between my mom and my sister, that kickstarted this film, Paper Bag Plan, of what happens to your child once you leave, and are they set up to handle life on their own and get a job?
A lot of what you're doing, it seems a lot more personal. That you love being a director, not because of the cool special effects that you're used to. It's about telling personal stories about race, about gender, about disability. Is kind of what you're being a director. Is it almost in some ways a calling to be able to tell these stories that others might not have? Because it seems like like I said earlier, your path seems completely different to what you were trained to do to what you're doing now. Do you see it as a calling to be able to make these sacrifices, to wonder about your 401k in order to tell these stories, or is it just what you find your passion in?
It's both. It's a passion that I would like to feed, but financially, if I can't afford to do it anymore, I just have to stop. But yeah, they are passion projects, and I don't know if I do them. I've thought about this before. I mean, the cliche of you make the film, you write the film that you'd like to see, and that is exactly what I do. I just write the stories that I've never seen before and that I'd like to see, and it's usually because I come from East Oakland. It's very a lot of minority groups there, both race and religion, and very diverse area. So growing up, all of my short films, they always had diversity in it. So it wasn't like this catchphrase in my life. It's like, ooh, diversity, let's do that. It's like, no, it's just kind of like, I just saw, I don't know, it's just kind of how I grew up. it was multicultural, and that's kind of how I saw my screen of life. It's like, well, it would have these people in it because that's how I grew up. And that was America for me, was seeing all these different people, this diversity. So anyways, I wasn't trying to fill a quota either with my either of these feature films. I wasn't, with diversity, there's not very, it's, I don't know, it's probably 1%. I think it's maybe 3% of people with disabilities are in film or TV. So again, I wasn't trying to fill a quota at all. It's just, it came from my life. My brother was disabled, and I wanted to tell that story. And I do feel they are important stories. I do feel Paper Bag Plan's an important story, especially because my lead actor, he has cerebral palsy and scoliosis, and he's autistic. And so I think it's it's amazing to see, and his name is Cole Massey. It's amazing to see him thrive and just kick ass and just do such a great job in my film. And yeah, the hope would be that his career keeps thriving and keeps going, and that there will be more stories of people with disabilities in them. They should be stories that it doesn't focus on their disability. The disability has nothing to do with the film, is the hope. This film, my film, does. Their disability, of course, plays into it, but it's not the central focus.
Does Hollywood need a massive shakeup in your mind? It almost seems like, you look at a film like Good Will Hunting. You had two young writers that no one had ever heard of, in Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, that wrote a story, and they got an unknown actor named Robin Williams to come and be in part of their little, cute movie. I'm joking about Robin Williams, of course, but do more actors, in order to save Hollywood, need to be more open to taking chances? Because you don't see, it's hard to find an A-list actor that's willing to do a short film or willing to give, even though you can win all these awards in a film festival, a lot of actors avoid them like the plague because it's not, big financially or big. But do we need more chances like a Robin Williams, who I think most people would not approach a Good Will Hunting today in like a Robin Williams role?
Yeah, if these actors cared about the craft of it, they would do it. But when we were casting for Paper Bag Plan, it was originally written as a mother-son. And so my casting director, we had reached out to maybe 35 or so actresses, maybe 30 actresses, that I had handpicked and my casting director handpicked, that we thought were at the top. They were like excellent actresses. But they had not had they maybe hadn't been a lead in a feature film. Maybe they are doing TV. They're like a side character. So, but these were actresses that we really respected and thought like they would be fantastic in this film. And so, but the long story is we got rejected from all of them. We sent them the script. The screenplay was a Sundance quarterfinalist for the labs there. So we would attach that it's quarterfinalist with Sundance. But we also had the stipulation when we'd send out these inquiries to these actresses that we would not have a trailer for the actresses to sit in on set. We just could not afford a trailer. Film was being self-funded. So I think I probably should not have said that in our inquiry letter to these actresses, because I think it scared them off. And they're like, oh God, this seems like really, really low budget. And it's who knows if it's going to be any good. But so we got turned down from all of them. And so I'd worked with Lance Kinsey in a short film. And we just, my wife was like, why don't you make it about a father and son? I don't see very many inspirational father-son stories. And so I was like, and I'd been thinking about it. It's like, okay. There weren't very many white actors working at the time, white male actors working at the time. They had taken a hit. So I was like, well, I know a white actor, Lance Kinsey. He's amazing. And I did a short film with him, and it was a comedic role. But he was great. He was fantastic in it. And so we didn't audition. We didn't try. We didn't reach out to anybody else. So I just gave it to Lance. I was like, Lance, can you read the screenplay? If it speaks to you, then you could have the lead role. And he loved it. And he loved, we worked great together on the short film, and he loved the story, and he had a personal connection to it as well. So he agreed to do it. But yeah, I do wish other actors would be like Lance and like, yes, I'm going to take a chance. Otherwise these stories that are really important that need to be told, they're not being seen by anybody because there's nobody famous in them. So I do wish a lot of these actors would not think about their wallet for once.
It almost seems like we're enamored by the George Lucas story, you building someone in your garage, or, Steven Spielberg, where they started off with, stuff in their garage or their backyard, they're shooting stuff. And the creativity that grew out of those legendary filmmakers. And Star Wars had no budget, and you look at some of the stuff that they were able to do and put together, and we almost romanticize it. But now, if a Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas type were to be starting off now, it's almost shunned upon of not having the money and not having the background. So we love the idea, we love the story of how they got started, but now it's something that isn't embraced, and we almost need to be reminded of, what talent could be lost if we don't start embracing some of these award-winning filmmakers and directors of these storytellers. If they have no place to go and don't have the funding, what's going to happen years from now of Hollywood? And I think unless we make some kind of changes soon, or start embracing things, or start recognizing these awards, something needs to change.
Yeah, I think, I feel like independent films are going to rise again. I do think, I was hoping when Anora won the Oscar last year, I thought, okay, fantastic. This is going to give rise to more independent films. Because, you look at it and, distributors are always looking for somebody famous. There was somebody famous in that film, and it still won, and it did well. But so it hasn't quite taken off the way I'd hoped. I'd hoped that more independent films are going to be looked at and awarded and recognized, but it hasn't quite happened. But I think it will happen. I think people are there's already the superhero fatigue. I've seen that in the news. People are kind of tired of superhero films. So I think that's taking place, and people just want to see more heartfelt stories. And Paper Bag Plan I've had some reviewers say it just feels like an older film, like a Capra film or something. And it does. It's like, I feel like films of the 90s were really amazing. That's when independent films like Pieces of April or, even Pulp Fiction was a kind of an indie film, but they were very creative and fantastic storytelling in the 90s. And I would love for Hollywood to go back to that type of storytelling that was very creative and didn't have as much money, but it was, look, I like uplifting films. And I think this notion of dark has just, I don't know, just the people just want dark. These studios want dark. They want dark films. I don't know. I feel like I've spoken to audiences. I've been on these Q&As. I've been at these film festivals. Audiences want to be inspired, and these studios are not listening to the audiences, I think. And so, anyways, my film's inspirational. Paper Bag Plan's an inspirational film, and I do have people that appreciate that.
Again, East Side Sushi. You said it was picked up by HBO, right?
Yeah, it's on Amazon right now, though.
Okay, and then Paper Bag Plan is making the circuits right now.
Yeah, we just finished our theatrical run. It is on the Academy screening room, so it's in consideration there for all the awards. And then we should be somewhere on VOD, hoping by end of January or February of 2026.
So coming up. All right, well, Anthony, thank you again so much for coming on. I look forward and hopeful, truly, to seeing what the future has for you. I think it's frustrating to hear, there's a lot of hope in your voice, but there's also, I think, concerns over, can your passions meet what is needed or what can be done? And a lot of it's out of your hands, and you can be award winning in the film festivals, but unless Hollywood starts embracing things, I think we're losing a good chunk of our art and a good chunk of the people willing to tell it. So stay in it. I'm not saying, cash out your kids' college accounts, but stay in it, and I hope to see more of you in the future.
Thank you. I hope so too.